Steeler Nation, we are back for another episode of the Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy. I am Jay York Football. This is Mic'd Up Sports One, and we have a very special announcement before we get to our guests. We're back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet $5 and win $200 instantly in bonus bets. I mean, that sounds like just like a great deal. Like if someone just came up to me and I would take that any day. You throw $5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away an instant winner. All customers can take advantage of the two new offers every game day this September. Make sure you sign up and use our code 6Steelers and make yourself some money, man. It's always good to win money, watch some football. You know, maybe go buy a new recliner to watch the game or something, thanks to DraftKings. But use our code 6Steelers. Mike, I think you have a little bit to add.
Well, I know the Pittsburgh Steelers opened as an early favorite this weekend in Las Vegas, but that line has jumped. You're getting a lot of people backing Vegas. I think the Steelers opened at -1, and now Vegas might be -2 in some sports books. But listen, at the end of the day, it's all more fun when you're in the action. Download the app now. Sign up with code 6Sports. And as Jordan said, $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Official gambling partner of the NFL. Use code 6Sports. Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. Take advantage of that. 2 new offers every game this September, Jordan.
Yeah, and before we get into our guests, just want to talk about another great sponsor and partnership that we have with City Wheelhouse. I know every Tuesday we do the Jaylen Warren Show. It's where Jaylen Warren goes. It's where anyone in Pittsburgh goes to get their cars. City Wheelhouse, where the bar is set. Tires for all cars and trucks can be purchased online at stillcitywheelhouse.com. Make sure you get down there. Both of the Johns, great people. Remember, financing is available. That's stillcitywheelhouse.com. And you'll ride away feeling great. Hey, I think it's time to talk some football, and I think Steeler Nation would love to hear from our next guest. So, Sammy, let's get to it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Aaron Smith shields. Flacco, Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Yeah, recurring guest today. We really enjoyed hanging out with this guy, breaking down the NFL draft a few months back. Right now, you might say that behind Matt Canada, maybe the second most hated man in Pittsburgh. No, I'm just kidding. We're really happy to bring on PFF lead NFL analyst. You can find him at PFF Sam on Twitter. None other than our favorite Irishman over here, Sam Monson. Sam, what's up?
Hey, how's it going? The great thing is it's not just me that Pittsburgh Steelers fans hate. It's PFF as a whole. It's all of us.
Well, listen, you know as well as anybody that hate sometimes equals love, because it means that we're checking you guys out all the time, and you know, a lot of good stuff always. We're here to talk about none other than Myles Garrett v. TJ Watt. You've done a lot of it this week, that's for sure. I said you're a brave man for jumping on the tweeter and responding to a lot of people. So we're going to give you the floor, and we can't wait to have you break it down. So, I mean, let's just start off with the numbers game. This past Monday against the Browns, of course. The Steelers win that game. You have the two Titans, Watt versus Garrett, going up against each other in this matchup. TJ Watt with the big impact, right, for Steelers fans watching this game. Myles Garrett grades out higher than him ultimately at the end of the day. 91.7 versus 82.6. Why?
Yeah, it's funny. Every week, you know, the games take place and the grading gets done, and it's all sort of in a vacuum. And then we kind of try and get an idea of like which grades in all these games, where are people going to be mad, right? Because there's going to be a grade somewhere where player X is graded higher than player Y, and you don't see it coming until you get the blowback. And that's when it's like, all right, this is the one this week. So this one, and this is an interesting one because it's such a long-standing battle, right, between the two of them, two of the best pass rushers in the NFL, two of the best players in the NFL, TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. And it's interesting because Watt and Alex Highsmith were the two best graded players on defense for Pittsburgh, right? Which is exactly the way you would imagine it would be coming out of that game. And the two best graded players on defense for Cleveland were Grant Delpit, who had the interception, and Myles Garrett. So really it comes down to the Myles Garrett grade, because that's the one that doesn't tally with the rest. It's the one that doesn't come with the obvious box score plays that would say, yeah, of course that guy graded as one of the best players in this game. And really it comes down to what it tends to come down to with Myles Garrett, which is when you simply focus in on what he was doing, he was winning his one-on-one matchup a lot all the way through the game. He had a 40% pass rush win rate in this game, which is sky high. And as happens quite often when he plays Pittsburgh, two things happen quite often. Number one, he usually makes life absolutely miserable for Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle. And then the other thing that tends to happen is it doesn't get reflected in the box score numbers, even just pressure rate sometimes, the way it does for, I mean, certainly TJ Watt on the other side, but also the way it does for Myles Garrett the rest of the time. Like, this is the crazy thing is, if you listen to some Steelers fans, like those guys, there's a cohort of people that think Myles Garrett stinks because he never gets any kind of numbers against Pittsburgh. But like, the guy sacked the quarterback 18 times last year, and he has, not that many fewer sacks throughout his NFL career than TJ Watt does. And he's generally one of the most productive pass rushers in the NFL, as long as he isn't playing Pittsburgh. But the Steelers do a really good job of kind of crafting an offensive game plan so that those wins don't affect the play, so that they're able to get the ball out of Kenny Pickett's hands or Big Ben's hands or whoever it is at the time, and not have Myles Garrett ruin the game on them the way he has the potential to do, and his sort of production or his win rate would do in most other games.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the, I don't know what the best word is, maybe anger, confusion from the Pittsburgh fan base has to do with the fact, and you kind of alluded to it, that generally the Steelers' offensive line rankings, right, are bottom of the barrel. You're seeing this offensive line in terms of graded week in and week out, almost dead last sometimes, going back to last year for the Steelers, especially in weeks 1 and 2. So the balance between Garrett maybe not being overly productive in the box score versus the Steelers line stinking, can you describe how that balances out?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is sort of understanding how much of that Garrett is responsible for, right? Like Dan Moore Jr., I looked this up after people were bringing him up a lot. For his career, in games where he doesn't face Garrett, Dan Moore Jr.'s PFF pass blocking grade is 66.4, something like that, which is, it's average, right? It's not good. It's not bad. It's right in the middle somewhere. It's slightly above average. And then when he faces Myles Garrett, his grade is 18. So he goes from being a perfectly passable, viable left tackle in the NFL to looking like one of the worst offensive linemen in the game when he has to face Myles Garrett. And part of that is, they're not giving him the help and all those kinds of things. But like that, Myles Garrett impacts, the quality of this offensive line. Like, I don't think that Dan Moore Jr. is a disaster. I think he's an okay offensive tackle. Now, okay offensive tackles lose a reasonable amount. And that's why fans tend to get frustrated about them and tend to look on them, I think, a bit less favorably than they deserve. But, you can't block Myles Garrett with just an average offensive lineman. He will win that battle pretty much all day. The only question becomes, how much of an impact do those wins have when it comes to results? And that's the real crux of this whole discussion, right? Is how much should winning impact your PFF grade relative to the end results of the play?
But it doesn't at all, right? Like, wins, losses, do they
no,
impact your grade?
It does, but it's a case of there's a lot more complicating factors involved as well. So it's not the PFF grades don't factor in the end result at all, right? You will get, generally speaking, extra credit for, so you can break on a football, you can get a pass breakup, but if you dropped an interception, you'll get less of a grade than if you caught the interception. It's a different play. And, generally speaking, you will get more credit for getting a sack than not if what you did determined whether or not you got the sack or not. But what this game was interesting is it's like a perfect storm of examples where we don't give the extra credit. So there's a play in there where TJ Watt's sack and Myles Garrett had a hit where when they get to the quarterback, it's effectively the same play, right? They both get in, they both get pressure for slightly different reasons, but let's call them the same up until that point. And then they both end up grabbing the quarterback around the ankles, right? Going low, grabbing him down. And in one play, the quarterback on his way down is able to like toss the ball away to a running back, and it's an incomplete pass. Just get rid of it. And that's a hit, not a sack. On the other play, Deshaun Watson never finds anywhere to go with the ball and just ends up bouncing around a little bit before eventually toppling over. And that's a sack. So the difference between a sack and a hit on that play has nothing to do with the pass rusher, right? It's not finishing. It's not one guy like being a better finisher and making the play where the other guy didn't, getting there sooner. It's effectively the same play, and the result changes because of what the quarterback did, not what the pass rusher did. Those are the plays where we don't change the grade to give a guy extra credit for having a play that does have a bigger impact on the game, right? That's the sort of the important point here is the sack is a better defensive play, right? It contributes more to winning a game. It's a worse EPA on the play. It's all those kinds of things. The sack is a better defensive play, but it's not a better play by the individual. He didn't do anything different. He just got lucky relative to unlucky because his guy didn't find anywhere to go with the ball. His guy didn't get rid of it. So this game was stuffed full of these interesting plays where what we're trying to do is essentially evaluate how well a guy did his job relative to expectations, right? And did anything else contribute to the results being different or not? And I think people generally underestimate how much external factors influence the end results of those plays.
Yeah, I think I certainly was able to notice that you did bring up the factor of luck quite often. And, it does make sense to me, absolutely, in terms of the Alex Highsmith interception, things of that nature, right?
And,
right spot
and
at
look,
the right time.
Luck is one of those words that triggers people a little bit, right? Like maybe luck is the wrong way of describing it. But I think if you're aware of the other factors that influence the play, and the Highsmith play is a great example, right? In fact, both of Highsmith's big plays, the interception, like Highsmith didn't make an incredible break on that ball, cut in front of it, and pick it off all by himself. That required hitting the receiver in the hand, bouncing up, then bouncing off a second player, and then it lands in Highsmith's hands, and he makes the nice return, scores a touchdown. So Highsmith, like you can say he got lucky, but if we say, look, that's a triggering word, let's not bring that up. He needed external factors to happen before he was even in position to make that play. And that's okay, but that has to be, you have to bear that in mind when you start crediting, well, how good was the play? It is a different play from him than if he had, broken in front of his guy on a route and picked the pass off all by himself and, returned it for a touchdown. To us, that will get you a different grade, but it's the same play from a production standpoint on defense.
I know this is a question that has multiple layers, and there might not even be an answer or a simple answer whatsoever, but certainly something that I think, people who are close to the Steelers fans naturally, of course, generally disagree with is the fact that, we think TJ Watt overall is a better player and pass rusher than Myles Garrett. And I think you guys disagree.
I mean, right now, TJ Watt is the best graded edge rusher in the NFL through 2 weeks. Last season, Myles Garrett was a better graded player than TJ Watt. It's really close. Like I posted on Twitter earlier, we're in a world right now where Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, these guys are all in the Micah Parsons that I mentioned. These guys are all in the NFL at the same time, right? And that's not even mentioning people like Max Crosby and anyone else you want to bring up. Like it's an insane area of riches when it comes to pass rushers in the NFL, and they're all insane, right? They're incredible. Like Micah Parsons looks like one of the best players to hit the game in the last 25 years, and I'm not sure he's the best pass rusher in the NFL. Like that's where we are right now. So when we're talking about TJ Watt versus Myles Garrett, it's splitting hairs between two insanely good players. And
Fair enough.
TJ Watt is the guy. So when you're splitting the hairs, they diverge in a couple of different ways at the moment. TJ Watt has better career statistics in almost every area, right? The one area where he isn't better is just simple pass rush win rate, right? How often does he beat his man one-on-one? And Myles Garrett has the edge there. And it's really a case of what do you value more, right? How many, and I don't think there's a right answer to this necessarily. Like TJ Watt gets a strip sack, force fumble, right? Let's say that's one play. How many pressures does a guy need to get before to equal one of those plays, right? Because there's a number, right? Like one of those plays is worth X number of just random one-on-one wins in a game. But I don't think there's necessarily a correct answer to that. So that's really what it comes down to is TJ Watt is substantially far behind Myles Garrett when it comes to one-on-one wins and how often he does that. But he gets substantially more of those big plays. And it's really like, where does the balance and the tipping point between those two things?
Yeah, I think sometimes too, like Yinzers just don't want to hear the truth. Like we try on our podcast, you know, obviously we're Steeler fans, but at the end of the day, like we like to give an unbiased opinion. So we definitely respect everything you're doing over there. What are you seeing from Kenny Pickett right now, and what are his grades like?
This is gonna really help endear me to the Steelers fans.
I think people will agree with you here, though.
Yeah,
That's
I mean
the difference.
it's been a rocky start.
But how bad has it been?
It's been awful. And I came into the season so high on what I expected this offense to look like. They were flawless in preseason.
Yeah.
And, you know, the training camp reports. Yeah. The training camp reports were like, hasn't made a mistake, looking phenomenal. They go out preseason and they're just immediately straight down the field, touchdown, straight down the field. Like it's so simple. And you're like, with the collection of skill position players they have, with an offensive line that, you know, I know you said they were problematic, but I think they had been reasonable in terms of pass blocking last year and had added, you know, a guy like Broderick Jones. Like, and Kenny Pickett just looked so good preseason. We were all expecting, you know, they're going to take a huge step forward this year and really look good and offset everything about the offensive scheme that has everybody so concerned. And it's been a total train wreck so far through 2 games. It's looked horrendous. And I think the blame lies everywhere. Like, obviously, Matt Canada is going to get like the focus of the ire, and it's justified. Like, the scheme is pretty ugly, but Kenny Pickett's looked terrible. Looked like a different player from preseason. The skill position players, they're in this weird spot where, you know, the Steelers get all this credit for just the Midas touch when it comes to drafting receivers, right? And I think there's validity to that. Like, they pick some really good players. Love George Pickens, love Calvin Austin, love Deontay Johnson. Actually, we loved all the players that they ended up drafting in recent years. And they're obviously all good, but when you don't have that sort of proven superstar, the question I think is still open. Like, how good are they? You know, we know Deontay Johnson is a great route runner, but he's been sort of spotty and in and out and hands issues. Calvin Austin rather is a lightning rod and a really fast, explosive player, but we're only just seeing him. George Pickens has always been a spectacular at the catch point guy, but the question is more, can he get open enough to be a true number 1 superstar? So I think that is an open question. Like, this is clearly a capable group of wide receivers.
Where do you have George Pickens ranked in wide receiver terms?
Yeah, I mean, he's not, I think, at the very top group. I think he's somewhere beyond that. But as I say, I think the question is still open. Like, we need to see him playing in an offense that's doing really well to figure out where his ceiling is. Like, I think at the moment, we don't know if this is as good as George Pickens gets, or is he being held back by the fact that the offense stinks right now?
Yeah, and I think I'm not ready to jump ship because it's only week 3. I mean, I know everyone panics as soon as, you know, but it's a long season, as we know that. So, you know, it's definitely been a rocky start. But again, we always appreciate you coming on here. We do the Jaylen Warren show every Tuesday here on the Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy. Just one more question. Is Jaylen Warren graded higher than Najee Harris right now?
I knew you were going to ask that. I'm just going to check that right now.
I just wanted to end on that, man. Again, always appreciate
2023. He is. Yes, he is in fact graded higher than him right now. So small
There it
sample
is.
size, but he's got the better grade.
Yeah, and then
There it is.
Tomlin just announced today in the presser that, they're going to start, splitting carries.
Giving
It's
him-
70-30. I guess we'll see.
Because Tomlin is reading PFF. Come on now.
There you go.
Let's get it right. Sam, man, you spent a lot more time with us than we initially talked about. We appreciate you jumping on, and you're a brave man. And, at the
Great
end of the
work.
day, this new math is fun to us. We're all still learning it, digesting it, but I think it's the wave of the future. So great stuff, man, and we appreciate this.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Sam.
Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
See you, man. Hashtag new math, man. That's where we're at. Listen, I mean, we said as much. We both sit here and disagree. We disagree. We think TJ Watt's a better player. We watched, our eye tests.
But
They
after him
go
talking,
beyond the box score. I mean, for us as consumers of the game, right? We see TJ Watt had 4 quarterback hits, 1 sack, a fumble recovery, a touchdown, a pass deflection. And we see that Myles Garrett had 1 tackle and 1 quarterback pressure. And it's going to sound like I'm defending them, even though I disagree that TJ Watt is a better player, because everything says he's a better player across the board. But what they're trying to tell us is they factor in how quickly the quarterback's throwing the ball, right? They factor in if Myles Garrett is getting chipped on every play, who the better offensive lineman is they're going against.
it goes
right?
deep.
They factor in whether, how often the Browns are blitzing, how often they're playing 4-man front, right? And Garrett's still getting pressure. So there's a zillion analytical points that go into this, opposed to just like, oh, this guy had 3 sacks and this guy had 1 tackle. That means he's the much better player. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I will, I'm going to go to bat for TJ Watt. He's a better football player because I think listen, if you're talking a 2-game span, whatever, over time, you look at all these stats and the more impactful player, it's been TJ Watt. I don't want to say Myles Garrett, it's a bad player, but
and the Browns are always losing.
It's such a deep conversation. Like it's chicken or the egg for me too. Like I always talk about it with Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett. Is Matt Canada awful at his job because Kenny Pickett hasn't been very good? We're not 100% sure. Is Kenny Pickett awful at his job because Matt Canada stinks? Probably. But once again, how do you balance that? Chicken or the egg, right? Same thing with, Big Ben his last year. Did Canada get stuck with a 41-year-old Ben and a rookie quarterback, and is that why he's looked awful? Probably not. He has a crappy resume, and he's done nothing to show that he's going to be successful. But at the end of the day, do we know that for a fact, right? Or if you put Matt Canada with Patrick Mahomes, there are people like, this is the best coordinator of all time. It's just so much deeper at the end of the day. And we do appreciate Sam for jumping on. I said he's a brave man. We're going to post some of these clips. Yinzers are going to say, why are you talking to PFF? PFF sucks. This is ridiculous. But I know I'm talking a lot, Jordan, but before I hand it back to you, here's one thing I hate about what people do, okay? I disagree with PFF.
You're getting real passionate.
Well, here's what I hate what people do. I disagree with PFF a lot, okay? Probably more often than not. But people do this thing, Steeler fans in particular, and a lot of Steelers media even do it too, where when they agree with something PFF says, they use it as their backing or reasoning for a conclusion or for what the outcome should be. For example, when PFF posts the Steelers' offensive line is terrible, people in the Pittsburgh media, Steelers fans, will post something on Twitter saying, look, they nailed it. We told you they were awful. Well, then it's one way or the other. If you support those PFF grades, maybe you should at least consider the fact that if they tell you Myles Garrett had a better game than TJ Watt, you're going to jump on and say, these guys are the worst of all time. Then don't use it to support your argument, right? If you think they're terrible, they're terrible. If I go to Wendy's and they serve me 6 undercooked burgers and give me food poisoning, right? But one time they make a good spicy chicken sandwich, I'm not going to jump on and say, fully support Wendy's. This place is, and hopefully Wendy's don't become a sponsor anytime soon, and I love them for what it's worth. It's a terrible analogy, but don't use them to support your argument if at the end of the day, all you do is say PFF sucks, I hate them, everything they do is wrong, they're stupid, they know nothing. Oh, but look, they said the offensive line was bad. I told you the offensive line was bad. And rant.
All good stuff. And we just want to thank another great partnership over at Brushes and Beans Cafe in Murraysville. Caffeinate and create at Brushes and Beans Cafe. Visit them at 4550 William Penn Highway. I just seen they posted today that, they have a little banquet room where you can rent, your kid's birthday party, family reunion, do some art. The drinks over there are great. Go see Mark. We're going to be doing some stuff with them during the season. And hopefully, I know they're big Pitt supporters too. Hopefully they can, pull the upset UNC this weekend. So
for sure. We're going to talk Steelers Raiders in a minute, but also I want to shout out where I got my hat. I really do love this hat. I wore it on 2 consecutive shows. This thing is sweet. It's a flex hat, by the way. It's one of those one fit all. It's got YNZZ on the back. Fits backwards and forward. Yeah, it's ambidextrous over here. It's flexible. So I love this hat. Shopyins.com. Use the code SICK15. 15% off your entire purchase. That's it, man. We're going to have more giveaways through them. We're going to have some really, really awesome events, hopefully live, where they're bringing out T-shirts and whatnot. They really are the #1 brand for Pittsburgh sports. Black and gold, baby. I absolutely love this hat. Wise up. Shop Yins.
Make sure you use the code SICK15.
What do you think about Steelers Raiders? They're going to
win? I want to listen. Yeah, I know that I wasn't really positive.
I think you predicted a loss on your preseason
because we never play the Raiders good.
True, true.
I feel like Derek Carr had a terrible Raiders career, and only time he played good. Well, Kenny Pickett broke that curse last year for Franco. But yeah, I mean, it's just like this is a toss up for me. I don't know whether to be confident or not with this team. It's like, you want to, that the talent is there. I mean, I'm just it's like a vivid dream preseason. Like, I mean, it's like, what was that? Like, I was like ready to run through a wall. Now I'm like, what are we doing right now? Just a lot of question marks. But yeah, I think that it could go. It's a 50-50. It's a toss-up for me. I can't even predict if it's going to be a win or a loss. Obviously, this Raiders team is a beatable team, but it's the NFL. It doesn't matter. You're playing the best of the best every week. But I really think that, just from watching the pressers, I think that, the Steelers as a team right now are on the hot seat. It's like, kind of like shit or get off the pot mentality right now. It's, someone has to be held accountable, and, football is the ultimate team sport. So I think it starts from the top. It's, people want to put all the blame on Canada. And I think that some of the blame can be on Canada, but like you said, alluded to earlier, it's, Kenny Pickett hasn't been performing well. We got to get the running game going. We got to start stretching it out to these wide receivers. We got to start, Gunner making, stupid decision after stupid decision. I mean, these are, you root for them, but I mean, if we're strictly talking football, it's been a nightmare. Like, even squeaking that win out, I think if Nick Chubb, I really, he's just such a great talent. We talked to Jalen about it. You don't want to see anyone, I don't care, your worst enemy, get hurt like that. But this team really needs to find its identity. I mean, I think that if you want to sum it up, I just think, and, I think that they could lose this week, but, as a fan, I'm saying, yeah, but I'm not too high right now.
Yeah, I ultimately think that this Raiders team resembles the Raiders teams that they have played poorly against in Vegas in the past. I think Jimmy G is very similar to Derek Carr in a lot of ways. So I don't even think this is a playoff team.
He's great when he's healthy.
Yeah, they're not going to be in contention for the AFC West. He's solid when he's healthy.
They have talent, but they can never put it together.
Devontae Adams on the outside is going to be a problem, especially after what we saw with Levi Wallace and Amari Cooper. I wouldn't be shocked if Adams just goes off. It's going to be a tight
Joey
game.
Porter Jr., more playing time, hopefully.
Maybe some more reps.
Maybe see some Broderick Jones in there.
I think the Steelers offense, listen, they're going to play better because they can't play worse. So the Raiders defense is they're not the Browns, they're not the 49ers. They're a bottom 15 defense in the league. But they're also not, the worst team you're going to see. It's not like you're facing the Detroit Lions, who have gotten better anyway. But, this is a winnable game, and I think there's a lot of pressure on Kenny Pickett in the offense to score some points. I think we finally get to the 24-point mark, really. Wow. I do. I think 21,
That's
24
bold.
points.
That's bold.
It's insane prediction, I know. And that the
Are you
Steelers
standing
defense,
by it?
I'm standing by it. I'm going to say the Steelers defense performs very well again. And I think when it's all said and done, the Steelers get to 2-1. They win 24-17, I'll go with, 24 points in a Pittsburgh Steelers, Matt Canada-led offense. We're throwing a parade, Federal Street. See you there. 24 points. Bring your terrible towels.
What I really like too, that Kenny Pickett kind of said, like, the media always asks him the same questions. Obviously, it's their job over and over again. And he's kind of like, pushing forward, constantly thinking of the net. Like, you can't dwell on, hey, obviously we're not performing well. Like, I think that, they know that. But at the end of the day, they just got to go out there. You can, say, hey, we're going to do this and that better. You have to bring it to life on the field. And I'm really hoping that they can find their mojo, because the talent's there. I mean, it's inevitable. I mean, on both sides of the ball. I mean, we have the highest paid defense, and we have two great running backs, great wide receivers, and I think Kenny Pickett can be great. And just gotta, it's week 3, Pittsburgh Steeler fans. Just take a chill pill. It's obviously a lot of question marks, but like I said, I can't even give my 17-16 Raiders. I'm sorry.
Hey, I like that you stuck to your word, because you had them losing this game. You had them beating the 49ers and beating the Browns and losing this game. Yeah, I had them losing to the 49ers and then winning the next 2, but I did change my pick like a punk. But I still think they're going to be 3-1 after these 4 games, meaning they'll beat the Raiders and the Texans next week. But that's a different story for next week, and we'll get there.
All right. Well, hey, we appreciate all of our subscribers. Just make sure you check out all our great sponsors and everything we're going to be doing. We're going to be having a Jaylen Warren live show coming this fall, so make sure you check all our socials for that, and make sure you give us a follow on the Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy. I say this all the time, and I'm probably going to say it every podcast. Like, we really bring these guests on. Like, this is the fun part for me personally, and I know Mike as well, is that we're able to bring you guys, all these different guests, the Jaylen Warren show. Like, we do this for you, and we're just one big family. It's all peace, love, and Steeler football. Subscribe to the Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy, and let's go eat some pasta, Sammy. What do you say?
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.